Hi, everyone, and welcome back to Brian's Horror Corner, or welcome if you are new. And this is for the new Omen movie. This is my spoiler free review for the first Omen, which I just saw at the theater earlier today. Of course, I opened the year reviewing the entire Omen franchise that I have on Scream Factory, all five existing movies, the original, the three sequels, and the remake from 2006. And then I ranked them all based on my least favorite to my favorite. I also mentioned in that series that I would be seeing the newest Omen movie that was coming out in April. Well, April has arrived. Here we are. So let's just go ahead and get into my spoiler-free review for the first Omen. The First Omen is a 2024 American supernatural horror film directed by Arkasha Stevenson, who co wrote the screenplay with Tim Smith and Keith Thomas from a story by Ben Jacoby. It is the sixth installment in the Omen franchise and a prequel to The Omen from 1976. The plot follows an American woman sent to work at a church in Rome who uncovers a sinister conspiracy to bring about the birth of the Antichrist. So Father Brennan presses Father Harris about an occult conspiracy. The shaken Harris gives Brennan a photograph of a baby with the name Skiana inscribed. Harris is killed when a falling pipe splits his head open. In Rome, 1971, amid left-wing protests, American Margaret arrives at the Visordelli orphanage. She meets with Cardinal Lawrence, Father Gabriel, and Abbess Sister Sylvia, her roommate Luz, and nun Angelica. Luz invites Margaret to a disco where they dance with a man, where she dances with a man named Pialo before blacking out. She awakens the next day with no memory of what happened. So that's sort of the setup and the premise for the first Omen. As far as the cast goes, we have Nell Tiger Free as Margaret, Sonia Braga as Sister Sylvia, Ralph Ineson as Father Brennan, Bill Nye as Cardinal Lawrence, Tafik Barhum as Father Gabriel, and Maria Calbarero as Luz Valles. Those are some hard names in there to pronounce. So yeah, that's the setup and the premise and the cast for the first Omen. Um, this movie surprised me, as it has a lot of people. I think a lot of people thought like I did. Yes, I was interested in seeing it, but my expectations weren't particularly high because this just seemed like another cash grab sort of movie, just sort of a standard by the numbers sort of almost like the Nun movie or like one of those movies, one of those Exorcist movies, like kind of like I heard a lot of people say Exorcist Believer was from last year. So I didn't have high expectations. Obviously, I love the first Omen movie and the sequels and the remake to varying degrees. You can go back to January and watch my thoughts on them. But this movie surprised me. I think this is actually a pretty good movie, especially when you consider it's a prequel that came out 50 years almost after the original that it's trying to prequel to. Um, and so let's just go ahead and get into it, starting with my pros. Um, the, a couple of the things the movie does really well is first it captures and does a great job of capturing that 70s aesthetic of the original Omen movie. This isn't a movie that you watch and you're thinking it's 2024. They really go out of their way to make sure you know that you're back in the early 70s. I think the movie takes place in 1971, if I'm not mistaken. But through visuals, through the setting, the cinematography, and the costumes, they do a really good job of right away creating that 70s aesthetic here and atmosphere. So it really takes you back to that time period, which is so important to make this prequel work along with the original Omen movie and the sequels. Maybe the best thing about this movie is the fact that it's the first Omen movie since the original, a little bit in part two, but the original, where it really captures that buildup of tension and that sense of dread. Whereas the viewer, we know that things aren't quite right and that something's around the corner, another shoe's about to drop, kind of, sort of speak. And they just do such a great job building that dread. Um, we're just waiting with bated breath. We know something's coming. We don't exactly know what. But yeah, it's a hard thing to explain, but a very important thing for a movie like this. And really, the original Omen and this movie are the two that really nailed it, in my opinion. So that's probably the biggest compliment I can pay it. Um, the performances of the entire cast in this movie is exceptional. Really quite good by everybody. Ralph Ineson is very good as Father Brennan. Of course, he didn't play Father Brennan in the original Omen movie. I also like the fact that they brought that character back, so it's not just a completely separate. You don't have any of the characters from the original Omen movie because if this movie's meant to take place literally like the same year that in the first Omen movie, of course, Gregory Peck ends up taking the baby who would become Damien. So in order for that to work, they had to do it this way. So yeah, having Father Brennan was big. I thought Ralph Ineson, he made him his own, but he played him true to the character as well. Um, Everybody's just very good in this cast. I thought Sonia Braga as Sister Sylvia was good, very kind of creepy when she needed to be, just very um, conspiratorial as she's supposed to be. Her roommate Maria Cabello. Why can't I not pronounce this name? Cabello Caballero as Las Valles. You'll have to forgive me. It's been a long day. She does a great job as her roommate, and she's actually pretty important in this movie, even though you might not realize it at first. She definitely plays a part, but the main bouquet of flowers goes to Nell Tiger Free as Margaret here. I mean, she carries this movie, and I haven't seen her in anything else. I guess she was in Game of Thrones, from what I've heard, and then M Night Shyamalan's movie. I forget the name of it. I haven't seen any. I haven't seen Game of Thrones or The Servant. That's what it is, Servant. So I don't. I didn't know anything about her, but man, she's good in this movie. She carries this movie. We believe her through her dialogue, her expressions, and her overall screen presence. Um, she um, she's the main character and just has a terrific character arc throughout. But it's that character arc works so well because Nell Tiger Free really brings life to this character, and we just from jump basically we're sympathetic to her and we're on her side. And she has to go through quite her character arc really goes. I mean, she starts out as this devoted, soon to be nun. I don't think she's a full blown nun yet. She's there to try to become one by receiving the vows and stuff. And yeah, she's definitely one of the best parts of this movie. Very good performance. A lot of the visuals in this movie are quite memorable and somewhat disturbing. Between the editing, the cinematography, and just the overall atmosphere that this movie has. Um, just yeah, everything from a technical standpoint is really good in this movie. I also have to give a shout out to Arkasha Stevenson, the director. She does a great job here with keeping the pacing up in this movie. Like I said, the atmosphere, the aesthetic of it. She really makes the movie her own while still being uh, loyal to the original Omen movie, and that's about the best thing you can do. And I thought she did a phenomenal job. I don't know what else she's directed, if anything. If she's a first time director, it doesn't say that she is here. Somebody can comment down below if they know that she is. But I thought she was very well done. And this is a movie that I could see. Not to say that a man couldn't direct it as well, but I could see there's a lot of stuff happening in this movie that I'm not going to give away, of course, because it's spoiler free. But having a woman sitting in the director's chair, I think, gives it a perspective that might make the movie even better, and why it works so well in a lot of ways. So I'll just leave it at that. Um, the movie has a very good score as well, great and haunting religious musical cues. Again, this one in the original definitely knock it out of the park when it comes to the score. It calls back to the original a little bit. It was just very effective in its use, and it added a lot of tension building overall to the movie. I really like the reasoning as well for why Damien comes to be, the reason for bringing him about through the church, basically. Um, it was interesting and very believable given the power dynamics of many large institutions, whether it be government, the church, corporations, etc. Just that power structure. And it still holds true today. That's another thing about this movie. Even though it takes place in the 70s, a lot of the themes and things going on still hold up today. So it's not outdated by any means. I also think it does a really good job of tying into the first Omen movie as a true prequel without muddying things up too badly for that movie or the sequels. Especially if you go back and think about it or you go back and watch it. It's a seamless transition, much the same way that I thought, to use a Star Wars reference, Rogue One going into A New Hope was a seamless transition. This movie is very much like that, where you could watch this movie and then put on the original Omen from 1976, and there's a very seamless transition there because of the ending of this movie, the way they set it up. So, and then my biggest compliment, maybe yet, if you haven't had enough yet, I think this movie actually adds value to the franchise, and I think it adds value to that first original Omen movie that that was almost 50 years ago now, 1976, and that's just a really hard thing to do. Again, all the credit to the director and the writers here, Arkasha Stevenson, to be able to bring about a prequel so many years after the original, and to do it in such a way that's so loyal to the original. That's such a seamless transition from your movie to that movie. It really does add value to the original Omen, and I didn't think that was possible, quite frankly. It's very hard. There's a lot of prequels that try and fail. There's a few that are successful, and this, in my opinion, is definitely one that's successful. So, yeah, it definitely adds value to the franchise. Normally, prequels take away value from the franchise, but that's not definitely not the case here. So yeah, those are my pros. In case you can't tell, I really like the movie. As far as cons go, I will say, kind of a forewarning, the opening first act of the movie is a bit of a slow burn, where it's a lot of character introductions, a lot of different characters that are getting to know each other, getting to know the setting and where they stay, their roommate, the other people involved. We're really asked as a viewer to kind of stick with it despite a lot of talking and walking around. A little bit more drama and a lot less horror in the first act, but don't let that deter you. It does pay off. But that's just kind of a warning for people that might be going into this expecting to see horror action right off the bat. The first act is the slowest act of the movie, but that's on purpose. Um, to me, the biggest drawback of this movie, and the reason it's not going to be like a 9.5 or a 10 out of 10 for me, is the movie has this twist or this reveal like 80 or 90 minutes into the movie. It's a 2 hour movie, by the way, but that's not an issue either. But like an hour and a half into the movie, maybe a little bit less, it has this big reveal, the big twist, if you will. And I basically saw that twist. I spotted it in the first 20 minutes of the movie. But the movie really melts it like it's this huge, gigantic twist that nobody could ever figure out. And that part really just didn't work for me. I thought they could have either dropped the twist and just let the audience in on it early on. I'm not going to tell you exactly what it is, but it has to do with certain characters in the movie and characters that we might be following and trying to relay information to aren't necessarily the right character. I'll just put it that way. And like I said, I saw it coming. I'm sure other people have. Maybe not everybody. It might work for some people. But I could just tell where the movie was going in the first half of it. And I wasn't all that thrown off or surprised by the revelation that the movie makes out to be this big thing. So I thought they could have scrapped that or let the audience in on it early. They didn't necessarily need it. It doesn't kill the movie at all by having this twist reveal, especially if you see it coming like I did. But it's just something to be aware of. For me, that part really didn't work. Another thing I really didn't like is, so I mentioned it's a nice transition. Like if you take the second to the last scene and then just go to ending credits, that would have been perfect in going into the original Omen movie. But unfortunately, this movie, like a lot of movies nowadays, they have an additional scene, not like a post credit scene or anything like that. It's part of the movie. They go to black for a little bit, and then the scene comes on. And I was already thinking in the theater, oh God, this can go nothing but down from here. And unfortunately, it kind of does. Not that it ruins the movie or anything, but it's basically a scene that sets up possible additional information or additional storyline for certain characters in this movie and a potential sequel opportunity. I mean, this was totally stamped by the studio. I have no doubt about that. But it's just a scene I wish they really hadn't put there. I think they told a really compelling story, a really compelling prequel to the original Omen movie that if they would have just cut the head off the snake, so to speak, when they should have, it'd be I mean, already I'm going to view it as a seamless transition, but instead they have this additional scene. I'm sure for an additional sequel to the prequel kind of movie. And I just don't see the value in that. I just it's a money making thing. It's a studio thing. There's no doubt about that. But I found it to be kind of distracting to the end of the movie, unnecessary. And I'm and as a result of it, I don't think the movie doesn't fully stick the landing as much as it could have or was right there for it to do it. If it would have just put the credits there instead of this additional scene. That's just my opinion. If you've seen the movie, you probably know what I'm talking about. Otherwise, you'll have to see the movie to probably have an idea. Although you probably are aware with modern movies, they always throw in one scene too many. Whether it comes to like action movies, superhero movies, and horror movies does the same thing. And sometimes I wish they would just take their ball and go home when it's time to go home. So, but that's really about it, guys. I really enjoyed this movie. Like I said, most people were like me, didn't have high expectations, and this movie definitely met and succeeded, surpassed those expectations. So I'm going to give this movie an 8 out of 10. It's not a perfect Omen movie. I'm still not going to put it ahead of the original. I would probably rank it behind the original and the second movie, Omen or Damien Omen 2, because I really like that movie. But this one's right there. I would probably put it at 3, right in the middle there. Certainly it's better than Omen 4, The Awakening. I think it's better than Omen 3, The Final Conflict. And I'd probably put it ahead of the remake as well, which is basically a story beat for story beat remake of the original Omen. So, very good movie. I definitely recommend it. 8 out of 10. You don't necessarily have to run out and see it at the theater. I think you can wait for streaming, but I certainly wouldn't talk you out of going and seeing it at the theater either. There's some very good views of like where this movie takes place, like overhead shots and stuff and visuals that really pop on the big screen. So 8 out of 10 for the first Omen. I'm glad I saw it. I'll definitely be buying it and adding it to my Omen collection when the time comes, probably this summer, I'm guessing. But yeah, highly recommend this movie. So please like this video, hit the little notification bell, and subscribe to my channel so you don't miss any of my great horror content, my current series where I'm taking a look at what the hell am I taking a look at? The Evil Dead franchise. Sorry, I'm too many franchises floating around in my head now. And be sure to comment down below your thoughts if you've seen this movie. Don't give away spoilers if you can help it, but just your overall thoughts about the movie. If you enjoyed it more than I did, as much or less. Thank you for watching. I hope everybody's doing well, and as always, stay scared. Bye.